Were you guys blessed?
Amen.
Amen. Thank Engage Ministries for coming out and this evening we have a special speaker that's coming from all the way from Oregon to speak for us. His name is Justin Khoe. If you haven't heard of him yet, he's found on YouTube. His channel is called That Christian Blogger. And I want you guys to go check it out tonight and see the content that he has, the material that he talks about, very relevant. And he's going to be sharing a little bit about that this weekend. But I think tonight it's going to be a little special. He's going to share with us his conversion story. He has a wife. They've been married for 3 years. He is now located, they used to live in California. It's a quite small Adventist world. I know a lot of his good friends, and also a lot of my friends were his friends, and people that we've mingled before. And so tonight he's going to be sharing with us just a little bit more about his testimony and what God is doing through him, and what God is doing can do through us as well. And tonight I want to share with you his verse. It's found in 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. And it says, "Behold what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. Therefore, the world does not know us, because it did not know him." The next person will be up here will be Justin Khoe.
Test. Push the button. Test again. Testing 1, 2, 3. It's green. Test. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Hey everybody, how's it going? How are you doing tonight? Good. Cool, that's all right. My name is Justin, as you can see on the screen. And when I talk to old people, I tell them that I'm a digital missionary, because that's like the easiest way for me to explain what I do. But to you guys, I'm a full-time YouTuber. Every single day I wake up and I just blew that whole thing out. No luck today. Is there a reason why you use a microphone, or can I just talk to you guys? We need the microphone? Did I just knock batteries out? Man, it's 4 seconds of up here, and then it just. I think it did die because I had to turn it back on. Testing. Now, okay, there we go. Be very careful not to touch my pocket anymore. What was I saying? Oh, I'm a YouTuber, which means every day I wake up and I do this. And I talk to myself in public. I talk a lot to myself even when I'm by myself at home. And it's very different than what most people do for a living. But I find it to be pretty fun. And my goal on YouTube is to try and help young people bridge the gap between real life and then church life. Because you and I understand that there's a difference between real life and church life. That a lot of times things that happen up here on the weekends, they don't always connect with the things that actually matter to young people. When was the last time you heard a sermon on sex? You probably haven't, right? When's the last time you heard the church talk about homosexuals, the LGBT community, or what to do about depression, or how do I understand if God really is there or not? We come to church and we kind of assume a lot of things, but these aren't always the questions that we have as young people. And so my goal on YouTube is to try and bridge that gap and to help make faith come alive, to help make the Bible actually relatable and show how it can actually speak into your life on a day-by-day basis. And so over the course of this weekend, I'm going to be talking a little bit about why I actually believe you should spend more time on social media. Now, your parents might not be happy by the end of the weekend, because I'm advocating, I spend probably, maybe 12 hours a day on YouTube, all the time, and I'm a YouTuber, so I spend a lot of time on YouTube. But I really believe that we as young people should be spending more time on YouTube and not less. Most of the time when you hear in the church, they say, oh, social media is evil, it's corrupting our minds, and it's making us all kinds of crazy people, and that might be true if you just watch like the latest like Logan Paul vlog or the KSI flies. If that's what you're watching, then maybe they actually have a little bit to go with. But I'm going to try and talk about social media in a positive light, how we can actually use that as Christians for the sake of the gospel. Tomorrow afternoon, so that's what tomorrow's service is going to be about. The afternoon, I'm going to make it a little bit more practical, and we'll do some workshopping and question and answers, and I'll actually give you guys tips on how to grow your own social media following, whether that's you want to start your own YouTube channel or vlog and grow it. So I've been doing it now for 2.5 years, and I think I have a little over 75,000 subscribers. I'm doing it full time now. In my first 12 months running the channel, I had 10,000 subs, and that kind of blew my mind. I was like, well, this is a little bit big. I was just running on the GoPro at that time. I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, this is a fun way to meet people and to interact with the world. But for tonight, I was asked to kind of share my story and my testimony with you guys. Kind of like, how did I get to this point in my life, and what are some of the key moments that God has led me through to bring me to where I am today? So I'm going to share that with you, to give you guys a little bit of context, to understand who I am, where I'm coming from, and hopefully we can all kind of tie this all together by the end of the weekend. So hopefully you'll be blessed by the end of this all. So I'm going to start this off. Actually, start off with a word of prayer, and then I'll jump into my story a little bit. Father in heaven, I want to just give you thanks, Lord, for allowing me to be here tonight, for allowing me to be able to worship with my new friends here, to be able to share the story of what you've done in my life. Lord, you more than anyone know that my story is still incomplete, that you have much to write in my story moving forward. Lord, I definitely don't have all the answers. I definitely don't know the perfect way to do everything. Lord, I'm just trying to figure this out. And sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I make mistakes. But Lord, throughout it all, you are leading, and I'm so grateful for that. And it's my prayer that as I kind of recap some of the highlights of my life and some of the low points, Lord, that you would speak, that somehow it would bring hope and healing to someone in this room, that they would see that while following you doesn't necessarily make all their problems go away, it certainly does change things in a meaningful way, in a way that we would want. So my prayer is at the end of tonight, at the end of this weekend, that we would come away with a stronger understanding of who we are in you and our identity in you, and that, Lord, we would be inspired to seek you with our whole hearts. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So, is this working? We're good? Okay, cool. So I am the child of, not myself. Is this battery dead too?
It was working on that.
Man.
There it goes.
I'm the child of immigrants. My mother is from the Philippines, and my father is Chinese. Do I just have to like stand over here for the whole time?
No.
Oh, there's all the pictures then. Okay, cool, awesome. So I'm a child of immigrants. I'm Filipino, Chinese. My mother was born in the Philippines, ended up coming here when she was very, very young. I was raised in a Christian home. My great-grandfather was one of the first Adventist pastors in the Philippines. So I have like this really rich tradition with Christianity and Adventism in particular in my family. But as I'm going to kind of share my story with you guys, that didn't always kind of trickle down to me. In fact, a large part of my story was spent asking questions and not really coming up with any good answers. And so if you remember nothing else from tonight, because I'm going to be sharing, I guess this is what vloggers do anyways, I'm going to be talking about myself a lot and sharing my story, my life with you guys. But if you remember nothing else, I want you to remember 5 words. Can you do that with me? It won't make sense now. It'll make sense at the end of the presentation, but these are the 5 words. God does not have grandchildren. Okay, so that's what I want you to remember. Just, God does not have what? Grandchildren. Take that phrase, put it on a shelf in the back of your mind. Just leave it there. We'll come back to that later. It'll make sense as we get to kind of unravel kind of what I'm talking about. I figured it would be fun to show you guys some pictures of my family. What did I do now? Okay, I pushed the wrong button. That was my fault that time. I am the oldest of 3. That's my brother and my sister. I'm the one on the right with the really big front teeth. That's me, the big hair. When I was young, my parents got divorced when I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. I was really, really young. People ask if that was a difficult thing. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced that before. Families breaking up, usually it's really tough. And people ask me, was that tough for you, Justin? And the answer really was, no, it wasn't, because I was so young, I don't really remember life before then anyways. My family, from what I can recall, has always been in 2 different homes. I traveled to my mother's house on certain days, and then on other days of the week or on the weekends, I'd be with my father, kind of traveling back and forth. Since the divorce, my parents have gotten married to different people, so now I have an extended family on each side. That's my, does this work? Yeah, that's my mother right there, and that's me, brother, sister, and I'll talk about her in a little bit. My mother got married, as well as my father. That's my dad right there, and you'll notice there's 2 that are different from the rest. I don't know if you, well, actually, technically 2.5. They're different than the others. But this is my dad's side of the family, and I don't know, it's a big family. I don't know if all Asian cultures do this, but this is definitely the truth in Filipino cultures. Big families. We love big families. When I go to family gatherings, when I go to Christmas, there's like 60 people. And like literally 60 people without an exaggeration. And so I grew up in a big family, just trying to find my place in life. A couple of years ago, a really important event happened for me. I was in California, and I was working for this church. And I was preaching a series to try and help non-Adventist people realize that Adventism is better than non-Adventism, kind of how we do that kind of thing. I was teaching about the Bible. And so I was on stage and sharing a presentation. It was kind of like a 1-month series. It was a really long series. But little did I know that at the end of the series, there would be someone in that crowd that I would meet that was very, 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 that would eventually become very, very special to me. This is the last night. We're taking that giant selfie. There's someone hidden in that crowd that would kind of change things for me. I didn't meet this person that night. Actually, that's not true. She told me that I had shook her hand, but I don't remember. I've met so many people that evening. But a few months later, the church pastor comes up to me. There's the church pastor, there's me, the evangelist of the church, and the church Bible worker, and the church secretary. I don't know myself. Pastor, secretary, Bible worker, myself, evangelist. And they're like, hey, we're all single, and we're all trying to mingle. So I heard that there was a speed dating event down in Loma Linda that we should maybe go check out. And for whatever reason, in that moment, that sounded like a great idea. I said, oh yeah, that'd be fun, because I've always wanted to do that, like bucket list style. What do you want to do before you die, before you kick the bucket? I want to skydiving. I want to run a marathon. I want to go speed dating. It's just kind of one of those kinds of things. But in the back of my head, you know the truth. I really was trying and hoping and praying to meet someone. And I did meet someone that evening. It was kind of interesting. I met this girl. This is Emily. Turns out, Emily was at that same series of meetings that I was preaching at for that church. And I shook her hand. I didn't remember her because I met like 200-300 people. So it's really hard to remember names when it's like that. But she saw me. We walked into the speed room. Do you guys know what speed dating is? I'm assuming you do, right? It's kind of like there's a long table that's really, really narrow. All the guys are on one side, and all the girls are on the other side, okay? And what happens is you all sit down in front of each other, and it's called speed dating because you have to do it really quick. You are given about 5 minutes to introduce yourself to this person and just talk and see if there were sparks or not. Because at the end of 5 minutes, a bell would ring, and then everyone would shift over one chair. And then you meet the next person. And then 5 minutes later, shift over again. 5 minutes later, shift over again. I'd probably talked to like 25 different women at that one meeting. It was kind of intense. She saw me from across the room. And she's like, oh, I remember that guy. She actually was interested in me when she saw me at the front of the church. But she said, those Asian guys, it's hard to tell. He's probably like 35 and has like 4 children. I don't know. Then she saw me at the speed dating event. She's like, oh, he's single. So she rushes over and she finds where I'm sitting and sits right down in front of me. And would you believe it? In 5 minutes, we hit it off. She got to talk about how she was a missionary in the Philippines, how her brother passed away when she was in high school, and what that did to her walk with God. She talked about how she was pursuing a career in occupational therapy and wanted to use those gifts to be able to serve the world and to be one of God's hands and feet out there in a tangible way. I, of course, talked about how I like to go to the gym and work out, and it was very weird because she had seen me preach, and I didn't want to come off like one of those Jesus freaks, right? It was like, hey, I'm going to have a couple more other dimensions to me as well. But for whatever reason, we hit it off, and we started going out. We went on date after date after date. Pretty soon I realized that I wanted her to be my queen. It didn't take long, because, when I first met her, I literally, I looked her up, because you do the Facebook stalking, and then you guys do this. You do the Instagram stalking, right? So I stalked her on Facebook, and would you know, I only had one mutual friend out of 3,000 people. Man, I don't even know this person from anybody. But we started going out, started hitting it off. And would you know it, 4 months later, I was on my knee, asking her to be my wife. It was, obviously to say the least, it was very, very quick. It was a fast journey because literally 1 year, 365 days after our first date, that speed date that we had, literally 365 days later, we were getting married. We were in California, as I told you. We got married in a small church, actually the church that she grew up in as a young girl up in the Northwest in Washington State. The church that her parents still go to, they've been members of for over 30 years now. Got married in that church. And pretty much day one after we got married, we packed our bags and we moved to the East Coast. Oh, by the way, this is my other side of the family. You'll notice that now only one of them is different. I don't know if you can notice that. She's got a large family. She's got 6 uncles and aunts on this side and another 6 on that side. It's like a massive family, kind of putting the Filipinos to shame. And out of all of them, I'm the only non-white person. So that put a little bit of pressure on. There's some cultural differences that we've had to learn along the way, but we've been making it work so far. So right after we got married, we ended up moving across the... Oh, wait. Sorry. Backpedal a little bit before I talk about that. We got married. You'll notice that there's it's not quite true that there's only one that's different. There's another little one that's different. This is our son. This is Ronin, like a samurai. He's a Shiba Inu, which is a Japanese breed. He's the cutest. We got him 5 months ago. So he's still a puppy, still full of spunk. Thankfully, he doesn't pee on the carpet or chew things up anymore, but he's got attitude, but we love him. Here's a couple more photos. This is his first Sabbath. We had to dress him up for Sabbath, of course. And I have more photos of him. Of course, I have more photos of him. That's him, pensively thinking about life and the meaning of it all. Here's some of my other favorite photos. There you go. That's my little boy. That's Ronan. I had to say goodbye to him this morning. I was very sad. You can understand why. So we just got him. I'm looking at my next photo. I'm like, how do I connect that to this? High school. High school was rough. Life has been good for the vast majority, but high school in particular was a time of my life that stood out to me to be very, very difficult. No, not because I was getting bullied and stuffed into lockers. That was just fun. One of my close friends and I, we just decided to fit in. But high school was tough. As weird as it sounds, I was a senior in high school at a small little academy in California. And at 17 years old, I was wrestling with what I can only describe as an existential crisis. I was really struggling with what's the point of life? I don't know if you've ever had that before, and you're just like, man, life sucks. What is the point of life? I get up every day, my parents force me to go to school, I have to practice the piano because of course I'm Asian, that's just what we do. And then they want me to go and get a career and go to get a job. But I was always thinking, what's the point of it all? Why am I doing what am I doing? Because at that point in my life, I really didn't feel like I had direction. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you're in high school, maybe you're in college, and you just, I don't know what to do. I've heard a statistic that said that the most commonly declared major in college is undeclared. That the average college student changes their career path something like 5 times before they graduate, or something ridiculous like that. High school was tough because I was trying to figure life out. I was trying to find out what really brings happiness to a person's life. What really makes the difference and what can really help someone actually enjoy life. I would look around and look on social media. Back in those days, it was MySpace. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before. I was on MySpace, and you see people's lives out there living it and just having a good time. YouTube hadn't been invented yet, so there was no YouTube yet. And I was just thinking, like, so many people look happy, but why am I so miserable? My parents always taught me at a young age that, Justin, you can do anything that you set your mind to. You're talented, you're special. Of course, being raised in a Christian home, they said things like, God has a plan for your life. He's going to use you in a special way. They would tell me all these different kinds of things. Justin, anything that you set your heart or your mind to, you can accomplish if you're willing to work hard at it. And while that was a blessing growing up because it helped me to be confident and to realize that I could make a difference out there in the world, it also made me low-key depressed. If I could do anything, then why did nothing seem to matter? I want to rewind about a decade. I was probably in second or third grade at this time in my life. We were living in a rather small house that was made smaller by the fact that my aunt, my uncle, and their kids were all living in the other side of the house. And because of that, the living arrangement, I had to sleep in my sister's room every night. And it's important that you know it's my sister's room because otherwise you're going to think less of me as the story continues. It was my sister's room. But in the middle of the night, I'm kind of like roused from my sleep, and I'm thinking, what in the world? Kind of like a zombie, I get up out of bed, and I waltz over to the dresser. It was the same bed that, I was hiding under when my brother and I were playing hide and seek. He ran into the room, jumped on the bed, and the bed came crashing down, slamming on my head. It was that bed. So I leave that bed, and I go over to the dresser. And on the dresser were probably like 2 or 3 dozen Beanie Babies. You guys know what Beanie Babies are? You've heard of Beanie Babies? I don't know. Again, it was my sister's room, so they weren't my Beanie Babies. Everyone believed in the 90s that if you collected Beanie Babies, you'd be rich because you could sell them later. And then we just realized that we made the company rich and now they're worthless. There were maybe 30, 40 stuffed animals on this dresser. And for whatever reason, in that moment, this is weird, I start preaching to the Beanie Babies. I mean, it's like 1 in the morning, and I'm talking to stuffed animals. And I'm talking about how God created animals, and God loves them and has a plan for them. And we get all the way to like, hey, there's a flood coming, you better get on the boat, because this is an important thing. It's bizarre, right? And that's the earliest memory that I have of God, Justin, I have a plan for you. Because that's a weird story, right? That's a weird kid. If you walk in a room where a kid's talking a bunch of stuffed animals, you'd be like, call the priest. We got one of those exorcism things that we got to do. So I had this somewhat inward sense that God wanted to work in me. And actually, I think that this isn't unique to me. I think that every single one of us is born with this inwardly. Whether you have parents like mine or not, you know that your life is important, that you are not insignificant, that you are created with a plan in mind, that God actually wants to do something in and through you. But sometimes in life, that belief system, that identity that we have as a child of God gets stolen from us, gets robbed. And this is what happened to me at a young age. I was in the 5th grade. I remember we had a talent show. And there I was in the back of the stage, about to go on. I was in my Taekwondo gi. I think it was a green belt at the time. I was going to go do my martial arts, whatever. And the MC comes and asks me, Justin, what do you want to be when you grow older? And for the first time, I said it out loud. I wanted to be a pastor because that was the only word that I knew that meant I wanted to be used by God. I don't want to be a pastor anymore. No, thank you. YouTube is fine. But I said that that's what I wanted to do. And I think saying it out loud kind of changed something. Because from that moment moving forward, that identity that I had claimed as a son of God, I wanted to be used by God, would slowly be stolen away from me, to the point where I'm in high school trying to figure life out. I remember coming back home the day of my baptism. think I was like 12 years old or something like that. And of course, I was picking on my younger brother, as older brothers do, punching him in the face or giving him a wet willy, or I don't know what it was. My dad, trying to teach me, trying to kind of like coach me and guide me like any good father would, said, Justin, if you want to be like in ministry and used by God, you probably shouldn't be such a jerk to your brother. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, what would you think if your pastors came and just started like beating people up, like jumping like that? Like, whoa, hey, pastor, like, take it easy, like the New Testament, not Old Testament, okay? And when he said that, I had heard something different. He was trying to use that moment to kind of build me up and to mentor me and disciple me as a good father should. But what I had heard was not his voice. I had heard the whispers of the enemy. What the enemy was whispering in my ear at that moment was, Justin, you're never going to be good enough. Justin, you're never going to be able to be used by God. You messed up. You can't, like, it's literally been like 1 hour after you're baptized and you're already screwing up, beating up your younger brother. You might as well give up. And that whisper would be echoed throughout the years until when I finally just abandoned all hope. I don't know if you've ever felt that way before, where you have those whispers in your mind that say you're good for nothing, you're ugly, you're dumb, no one likes you, not even God can love you. I didn't know it at the time, but those were just whispers of the enemy. I thought that was how God truly felt about me. So I get to high school, and I'm struggling. What do I do in life? And of course, I'm going to these family parties, right, that are massive. And if you're in high school, if you're like a junior, you're a senior, I don't know how Koreans are, maybe even if you're a sophomore, you get this question coming up a lot. What are you going to do when you get to college? Which, translated into English from Asian, means what kind of doctor are you going to be, right? And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was struggling to find purpose and meaning with my life. And so, of course, I threw out the only answer that I could think of. All right, I'm going to show that. That's me graduating. What are you going to do after you graduate? And I said, I'll be a dentist. Because, well, my dad was a dentist. I figured that's what he wanted me to do. In fact, I knew that's what he wanted me to do. He's only told me about it 1 million times. Justin, you're going to be a dentist. You're going to be a dentist. You're going to be a dentist. But what if I don't want to be a dentist? What if I'm not excited about that? It would be easier just to become a dentist than fight my dad. You probably know what that's like, right? Just, okay, I'll do it. So that's what I said, I'll be a dentist, knowing full well that I would be miserable as a dentist. But I reasoned in my mind, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I love. I don't know why I was created. I don't know who I am. And whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to be miserable. So if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be rich. And this seemed like the sure way to do it. Rather than go through the difficult work of discovering who I was, and really digging deep into that, and discovering my passions and my purpose and why God had created me, I just rolled over and said, I'll take the easy route instead. I'll be a dentist. Miserable, but at least I'll have a little bit of money. I look back on that time of my life and I think, man, what a trap. Because I really felt at that time in my life that that was all that life had to offer me. That was really the best I could expect. But little did I know that God had different plans. At this time in my life, I met a friend who was kind of doing the whole Jesus thing. Like, you probably have that friend that's like super spiritual to like the point that it's like really, really weird. Like, I had one of those. And he started inviting me to Bible studies, which, let's be real, I was falling asleep in every time I went. But I decided to just give it a shot. Because as I was graduating high school, I finally realized that for the first time in my life, I would begin to taste freedom. For the first time in my life, I could wake up on the weekend, and if I didn't feel like going to church, I wouldn't. And this mattered to me because I had seen so many people go before me, my uncles, my aunts, older friends, different people that I look up to, who would live two different ways. During the week, they'd live one way, and then on the weekend, they'd put on their suit, on their tie, whatever they wore for church, kind of look the part to make their parents happy. And I figured, you know what, I played that game for so long, I didn't want to do that anymore. So at that time in my life, I was really thinking, is church for me? Because for like the last 4 or 5 years, I literally have not stayed awake in one sermon. Like I actually cheated my way through Bible class in the academy. Like that's just like, but is this worth it anymore? And I decided to give it one last shot. Because I figured if I was going to do it, I would do it. I'd go all in and give it my all or none at all. I decided, all right, I'll try it one more time. I'll give it one more shot. So the day after graduation, I find myself in a room filled with 20 other strangers. The thing that I decided to do was to go for a summer canvassing. I don't know if you guys have heard of canvassing before. It's like a summer ministry, kind of like camp. It's a thing that you do when you really like, I don't know, you want to take things seriously, I guess. And in that summer, I went door to door and I got beat up a lot. Not like physically beat up. I got beat up in Philadelphia later. I actually jumped. That's a different story, though. I got beat up emotionally and spiritually, and I had to, for the first time in my life, really rely on God in a very real and tangible way. And I was confronted with questions that I never had answered to. I started to study the Bible. I started to actually go through the motions of living by faith and actually trying to take God at His word. What I was surprised at was that life started to make sense. I started to develop this understanding that there is a plan for my life. There is a purpose. There is a reason why I'm here. And that thought brought me so much hope because I realized, wow, I don't have to wander through life feeling miserable at every step along the way. There was the path that I thought was the only path. Just do what society expects of you. Do what my parents wanted me to do. Do what was taught to me as a good Asian boy. Go to school, become a doctor, get a practice, marry a nice Asian woman. Clearly that didn't work out. I thought that was the only path that I had. And here, when I met Jesus, He had offered a different path. He said it wouldn't be easy because it would cost you a lot. Because again, my parents had hopes and aspirations and dreams for me. And yet, those weren't always the same hopes and dreams and aspirations that God had for me. It's a very weird place in your life because I was 17 years old at the time. And I was kind of coming to this point where I realized my parents might not actually be right all the time. That was like a revelation to me. In fact, there's certain times where they might want me to do something, and it might actually be the exact opposite thing that God wants me to do. So when God told me, I know that sounds really weird, but He did, and it was clear. I can talk about what that means later. But when God told me that He wanted to actually have me go to a Bible college and to study the Bible more and to use me, when I realized that, and it meant disobeying my parents. I love my mother, and I never wanted to disappoint them. But I had learned something. You know how the commandment says, honor your father and your mother? I had thought for so many years that honoring my father and my mother meant that I had to obey them. Do you realize that that's not actually the case? That sometimes the most honorable thing that you can do as a child is to disobey your parents. I'm not saying all the time, don't go run home and say, hey, mom, dad, hey, this is what I learned at church today. When God wants you to do something, and your parents want you to do something else, where's the priority there? What comes first in your life? You see, to truly honor your parents, you must live in an honorable manner. That's how you bring honor to someone, is by living honorably. And what is more honorable than living a life that God has called you to? So I realized that in order to honor my parents, for a season, I actually had to disobey them. While they wanted me to go and study, become a dentist, I had to go and study at the Bible college. And this caused a problem in my relationship with my parents for many years. Thankfully, it's solved, and it's great, and now they've kind of come around, and it's a huge blessing. It was tough. It taught me certain lessons that, you know what, I can't always rely on the people in my life who mean the most. Because obviously my parents want the best for me. I don't doubt that in any way, shape, or form, but they're only human. Might make mistakes. The only person I can trust is, in fact, God Himself. I began to learn that the best way to live life, so far at least up to this point, the best way that I knew how to live life was living life with one goal in mind. How can I follow God wherever He calls me to? Led me to places like the Philippines to go and preach overseas. I eventually became baptized and gave my whole heart to the Lord. And this is kind of what has happened most recently. I was in Philadelphia for a couple of years. This was actually the week after my wife and I got married. We ended up packing our bags and moving to Philadelphia because God had called me to be a teacher of all things, which is so bizarre because I hated school. And here I was as a teacher. Ended up in a school system working with a bunch of really cool young people, really cool, awesome things. And it was there that I actually had kind of this thought. I'll talk more about this tomorrow, but I met a young person who was really into YouTube. In fact, the reason why he became a Christian was because he had watched YouTube. And that blew my mind. And it was there that God told me something really bizarre and really weird. Something that was so different than what I could think of. Because here I was, I had already gone from dentist/doctor and taking the sacrifice to be a teacher. And you know the social implications of that in an Asian home. But God was saying, Justin, now I want you to quit your job and start YouTube. And that sounded so bizarre and so weird and so scary and risky. I decided, God, you know best. You know what you're doing. Up to this point, I've tried to live life on my own. I've tried to do things my own way, but I've learned at least one lesson. I might not always apply it, but I know that this lesson is true. God, your ways are better than my ways. So I said, okay. I purchased a camera. I'd never really used a camera up to that point. Never learned how to edit videos or do graphic design or any of those kinds of things. But I grabbed a camera and I started making YouTube videos. That's the apartment that I started my YouTube channel in Philadelphia. That apartment was like the size of a bathroom. It was rat infested, it was disgusting. We lived in our neighbors smoked weed every single day, and the windows just blew all that in. So there were some good times recording that in that room. But I decided to give it a shot. Decided to try it. And I've learned that God's way really is best. I'm struggling to know what to say next because this is the part of the story in every testimony that someone will share. And now my life is perfect. And now I have no more questions and everything's great. And I have no problems with my family. My marriage is fantastic. I make tons of money and I'm happy and healthy. That's not always the case. Sometimes God leads you through difficult times and moments. I went through depression. I've felt lost before. I've struggled with addictions. I've struggled with sins in my life. There's been so many moments in my life where it's just life isn't perfect. But that's actual real life. That's actually how it works out, played out. God didn't ever promise that things would be perfect. He did promise that they would be different. And I found that to be true in my life. While it didn't solve all my problems, it still made all the difference in the world. Because life today is 10 times better than life back then. At least today, now I know why I'm here. I know who I am. And in the middle of my depression, in the middle of my struggles and my turmoils, in the middle of my battles that I'm facing, in the middle of my fights with my wife, right? I can always come back to home base and know this. I know who I am. I might not be acting like who I am, and that's a child of the living God. He has called me to be His son, someone who's highly favored and treasured above all things in the world. I might not be acting like that, but that's who I am. I have a decision to come back from where I was, back to who God has created and called me to be. It doesn't mean life's perfect, it doesn't mean life's easy, but life's better. God does not have... Okay, you got it. 1 John 3:1. Behold what kind of love the Father has given to us that we should be called, what's the next word? Children of God. The Bible says over and over and over that once you put your faith in Christ, once you've accepted his sacrifice on your behalf, guess what happens? You are now a child of the living God. You are a son of God. You are a daughter of God. You no longer have to struggle with your identity or who you are or why you were created. It's clear you're a child of God. But God does not have grandchildren. And this is the lesson that I want to leave with you as we close. For years, I thought that being a Christian was showing up at church on the weekend, singing in the choir, joining Pathfinders every once in a while, and eating stripples in the morning. I thought that I was a Christian because I was born into a Christian home. You know how you can have one dog and another dog, and then magic happens, and then there's another dog, right? You can have a bird and a bird, and then they produce a bird. You can't have a Christian and a Christian birth a Christian. Because every single person has to choose for themselves. No one is born into the kingdom. You must be born again into the kingdom. There's no such thing as a grandchild of God, because God only has children. God does not have grandchildren. And what that means is that every single one of us must make a decision at some point in our life. Why are you here? What is the purpose of your existence? And for whom are you going to live your life? That's a tough question. And you might not realize that there's way more options than you might think. You could live your life for yourself. That's one route people choose. You could live your life for society's expectations. You've met the kind of people pleasers who don't know how to say no and just say yes to everything that comes along. You could live life for your parents, only doing what they want you to do, never thinking, what does God want me to do? You have to choose at some point in your life, who are you living life for? I tried a couple different methods, and ultimately I found that the best method for me was choosing to live life for God. God doesn't have grandchildren. He only has children. So I want to ask you tonight, who are you? What are you? Why are you here? What's the purpose of your life? What my parents have said to me is true for you as well. You are in fact special. You can do great and mighty things. You can accomplish anything that you want if you set your mind to it. But what is that thing? What will you pursue? Will you pursue academics to the exclusion of everything else? Will you pursue a music career? An entertainment career? I don't know what is the thing that you want. What are you here for? Who are you, if not a child of God? Let's pray. Father in heaven, I just want to ask that in this moment that you might draw near to the one or two young people here who are struggling with identity. It's tough as a young person to know why we're here. There's so many expectations by teachers and parents and friends and society. There's expectations that we put on ourselves and expectations that we receive from the media. It's so tough to know which direction we should go and how we ought to live our life. I want to pray for the friend or two in here that needs to realize today that they can put all that to the side because they know that they are created in your image. They are not an accident. They are not just someone on the sidelines, but they are someone special in your eyes. They are your child. Lord, you have a plan for their life. You have a purpose and a calling upon them. You desire to work through them and in them to transform both their lives and the lives that they come, the lives of the people that they come into contact with. Lord, it all comes from knowing who we are in you. And so may they know I am a child of God. In your name we pray.
Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, thank you for this day of rest that you've given us to put aside our worldly woes, for putting everything on the line sacrifice, to risk everything for us, for allowing us to confide in you our hopes, our sins, and knowing that you're faithful enough to forgive us of all of that and to purify us. But mostly, thank you for being our friend, as well as our guiding Father. As now we go forth to wrap things up here for tonight, that you may continue to inspire us and continue to bring forth people like our speaker Justin and our musicians. And this and so many more things we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Have you guys been blessed? Amen. Once again, I just want to thank Engage Ministries. They've been awesome. Actually, they'll be here all weekend. And also, Pastor Justin will have another talk for you guys tomorrow. It's actually titled, Pick Up Your Phone and Follow Me. So I'm pretty excited about it. I hope you guys are there tomorrow. Our program tomorrow will be Sabbath School at 10 o'clock. Be here at 10. We'll have great discussions. Pastor Justin will be in the audience and having a discussion with us. We'll be leading out. And then Divine Service will be at 11 o'clock here in the main sanctuary. So make sure you come on time for that as well. And then afterwards there will be potluck. Is that right? There will be potluck. And then there will also be question and answer at 2 o'clock. And evening activities, actually dinner first at 5, and then evening activities afterwards for sunset. So be prepared for a full day tomorrow, and I hope all of you guys participate. God bless, and have a great Sabbath.